lost his job days before our marriage, so I went on a date with another guy, but then this happened. My ego and pride has cost me a lot in this life. I had always been warned about it, but I didn't know it would cost me my fiancé and a chance to marry into a lifetime of enjoyment. This was all because I thought I was the better person, but I had been taught a lesson, a big lesson by my fiancé. Pride really goes before a fall, and my fall was epic, lol. I always thought I was on top of the world. You know the start to every sentence. Being the only girl whom my parents spoiled to stupor, I was expecting everyone else would do the same. That was how I had grown up, with everyone at my beck and call. Don't blame me for that, guys. Anyway, that shaped how I grew up and saw the world. In my head, I was hot, and who wouldn't want to do as I said? Absolutely no one. And absolutely no one could tell me what to do either. That was what I had told my fiancé when he had warned me not to go on the date, but I hadn't listened. He wouldn't even have known if it wasn't for my tatter mouth and the people around me who ended up taking what was mine. I found him to be simp and wanted him to know that even though we had already been engaged, I could do what I wanted and flirt with whoever I wanted. I wanted him to see that not even marriage could stop me. Well, it turned out my fiancé was far from being a simp. I was a clown for thinking that, and I had faced the consequences of my ego trip big time. And I had learned my lesson because my fiancé took his revenge in the most cruel and unexpected ways. What he did will shock you as it did me, and although it doesn't get to me again, it was a stab in the back. I guess the whole event shouldn't have been a shock to me. I mean, I should have seen it coming from when we began having problems that had been solely the fault of my selfish attitude, but I hadn't seen it coming. Let's begin from the start of my downfall, shall we? My name is Maddie, and I'm 27 years old. My fiancé's name is Walter, and he's 28 years old, I think. Walter and I had been friends since high school. My relationship story with Walter was like one you could regularly see in romance stories, where the nerd gets the girl, but in my case, the girl fumbles the nerd who turns out to be extremely rich. I kid you not, lol. Walter had a crush on me since we had been in high school, but couldn't tell me because he had been part of the quiet and shy group while I was the popular hot girl. I was an attention-seeking witch asterisk, literally. I know who I am and was. I wouldn't hide from it. So Walter nursed a little crush on me and didn't tell me through high school and finally confessed to me during a bonfire night that had been held by my sorority group. That night's party had been a disaster, and the events that led up to my fiancé confessing his feelings to me was one for the books. And yes, we had attended the same college, the University of Cincinnati, Ohio. I'd gotten drunk and was throwing it down for some random college dude, and before I could blink, I was away from the crowd and the music. My fiancé, who wasn't a fan of parties, had come to rescue me from the crowd. Wasn't that sweet? He had given me a bottle of water and then confessed how he didn't like me hanging out with the partying crowd. I think at that point, he thought he could control me. He had a year above me, so he knew all the college do's and don'ts and wanted to give me advice. Well, I had found him cute, and then he had told me he had a crush on me and would like to take me out on a date. I was drunk, so I had said yes and giggled. That's what I do when I have even a little bit of alcohol in me, and I always remember everything. So the next day, I went out on a date with my fiancé. It was cute and all, but we didn't become official then. We were just really cool friends, and he was a good help. We didn't start dating until 2 years ago when I was done with college. He had already graduated a year before me and had started working in a company. We dated for a full year, and I got to know his family, and I wouldn't exactly call them poor, but they weren't up to middle class. That line in between poor and middle class, yes. I hadn't actually been expecting that. I had thought that he was rich, or at least well-to-do. Anyway, I didn't pay that no mind. I mean, we had just been dating back then. There was no push, and he had a plan. He had told me he had a plan to make money, but while we dated, he still took care and provided for me. He loved me, I guess, but I'd been too prideful and had let that get away. We dated for a year, and I got back to our shared apartment one day, on our 1-year anniversary, and opened the door to my engagement party. To be honest, I had been a little bit angry because the plan had been to get rich first before we thought about our next step, which was marriage. Wasn't that a valid reason to be angry that he had just sprung up a proposal on me? And all my friends who I was better off than were there screaming, say yes, say yes. I couldn't say no. I wouldn't have said no, even though I was angry. Firstly, because I was the first out of my friend group to get engaged to marry, and I loved my fiancé. Yes, I did. He was thoughtful and kind and took care of me, but then I let my ego get in the way of a good thing. Well, I said yes, and we began planning our wedding. That was how Walter became my fiancé. Then on to how I ruined it and lost who I was supposed to spend life with. I never knew he would become rich or that he was already rich and was going through a case of daddy lesson. My husband never talked big about his parents. He just told me that they were still alive and wanted nothing to do with him. If I had known he was in line for an inheritance, I would have stuck by and reduced my ego a little. Yes, I was a gold digger and all the other names you people call a woman who's after a man's money. I wasn't going to stay in a marriage where I wasn't going to be provided for to the max. But if only I had known my fiancé had the potential to become rich to the point I had always dreamed of. I wouldn't have gone on that date or did all the things I did. I would have been more watchful of my cousin trying to take my spot. That sneaky minx. I knew she was up to no good. Tell 'em about I want to help you plan for your wedding. It really be your own people that set out to ruin you. Anyway, I was materialistic, and did my husband to be know I was materialistic? He knew I loved to be taken care of, that included gifts and unplanned vacations and random date nights and weekend shopping trips. Did my husband to be know I was prideful? Obviously, although he had warned me about it several times. I remember one such occasion when we had been dating and we had attended one of my friend's birthday parties as a couple. It was a close friends event. I was the only one with a Birkin bag worth about $2,000 and I never stayed one place. Everyone had to see my bag and my fiancé, boyfriend back then, had told me that if I was prancing around so everyone would see how better off I was. He wasn't wrong in the slightest, so I could say that he knew I was a proud person. I never took no as an answer from him, and I told him that he had a catch, so if I didn't look good, then I could be snatched up and made to look good. I'd only meant that comment as a joke, however, I never knew it would become my reality. Anyway, that's how our problems began. From when things became difficult and he wasn't forthcoming when it came to providing for me, and the fact that we were about to get married. From the moment we got engaged. I had told him getting engaged when he was not rooted yet was a bad idea, but he didn't listen. And some of you guys would think I was only thinking about myself, but I wasn't. I really had a plan for life with my fiancé. I just wanted him to get rich first, or at least be comfortable enough to provide for me without worrying about breaking the bank. I wasn't working, and he didn't have a problem with that. However, what I was worried about began manifesting, though. I wanted a big wedding, and my fiancé behaved like he had the capacity to provide that. But on the way it was revealed he couldn't. Was I wrong for being mad at that? I wasn't. I wasn't wrong for wanting what I wanted. I wasn't wrong for going after it either. The expenses of the wedding we had been planning had began coming in, and my fiancé started experiencing some hiccups at work. It was so sudden, but I had already seen it along the way. He got back home one day and said that he was under tough scrutiny at work. Apparently there was some confusion with the money he received for a company purchase and blah, blah, blah. And every loophole pointed back to him, but he hadn't stolen any money from the company. But anyway, I wasn't listening to all that. What got my attention was when this man said that we should postpone the wedding. Could you imagine that? Lol, after being the first to get engaged amongst my friends and boasting that my wedding was going to be the one they would talk about for centuries. And he was telling me we would have to postpone. I told him straight and direct that I didn't know he was going to get the money from, but we were going through the wedding as planned. No one was going to bring down my status in front of my friends. Over the weeks, my fiancé wouldn't go to work and stayed home surfing the internet with his laptop and snacked on chips all day. It got on my nerves and I decided to confront him about it. We had bills to pay. We had to pay for the hall, my dress fittings, the cake, the catering, the decor, and he was just being nonchalant about everything and was lazing around the house. That was when I found out that he had been suspended from work. That was the worst news of my life at that moment. I didn't know I was in for a show then, LOL. My husband had gotten suspended from work. That was obviously a big stop to the wedding plans because who was going to pay for it all? Definitely not me. He assured me that he was going to get a job soon, but let me confess I didn't see him in the same light after that. I was better off than him in my opinion because just one call to my dad and my wedding was planned, but I didn't want to depend on my dad. This was why I wanted my husband to be in a well-to-do position before we got married to prevent myself from situations like this. In my head, I put a stop to the wedding plans because I couldn't get married to a man who could lose his job. Ow. All respect I had for my fiancé just vanished. I told him he had to get a job if he didn't want to lose me, and that had caused a huge quarrel between us that day. About 2 weeks later, my fiancé began leaving the house again and announced that he had been vindicated, and they found out it wasn't him that was siphoning the money. Well, if he had been siphoning the money, that would have made us 100 times richer, and we could have run away to the Maldives. But my fiancé was the goody two-shoes in his office. He said we could resume plans for the wedding because he had been given a work bonus to make up for the fact that he was suspended. He had been ecstatic, and I was happy that he was finally with his job back. But then I had already done a bad thing, and I didn't know what to do. Wondering what I had done, I had began accepting friend requests from men who didn't know I was about to be married. It had started from a harmless reopening of my Tinder account. I had just wanted to see the prospects of what was going on there, and from scrolling through hot guys' profiles, I had accidentally swiped right on one. Accidentally, lol. And we started talking. It was just harmless flirting and talk and getting to know each other. I knew I was about to be married. I knew what I was doing wasn't right. But did I stop? No. My fiancée hadn't claimed me fully in front of my family and friends and the huge crowd that graced my dream wedding, so I was still a free woman. There was no official ring on it. And besides, what was the harm in a little online flirting? It was not as if I was ever going to go on a date with the guys on Tinder. I just wanted to feel sexy and good about myself. There's this power that we ladies feel when numerous guys find us hot and attractive, and let me not even get started on the attention. So that was what it was just meant to be. While my fiancé went to work and labored, I got attention from numerous men online who didn't stop singing my praises and made my ego grow bigger. I didn't know my downfall was going to be epic, or I was ruining myself for the good things that was meant to come my way. The money my fiancé gave me had been used up, and I had only just made down payment for the wedding hall and paid for phase 1 of my wedding dress fittings. This brought on another quarrel, and my fiancé had the audacity to suggest to me that I should get a job. Lamau, could you imagine that? He wanted me to get a job, and for what reason? Was it to foot the wedding bill, or to begin taking care of myself when I got married to him? I was so livid at that statement, and I reminded him how he was the one that got down on one knee to ask me to marry him, and not the other way around. For him to have done that, it meant he was ready to take me on as a responsibility and provide and care for me. I told him my dad could still take care of me, and he was old. I had been childish with my words. Trust me, I hadn't known the repercussions of what I was saying back then. Anyway, that seemed to anger him more because he thought I was in on the marriage too. Which I was, don't get me wrong. But I wasn't going to get married to someone who wouldn't provide for me like I had mentioned earlier. Imagine telling me that I'd been pampered my whole life to get a job. What was I going to do there? Actual work? No thank you. He was mad, and I was also livid, so that put a stop to our wedding plans again. I should have seen the signs from here. You had to be blind not to, but I guess was. And my fiancé was too, because who would have put up with my hazardous baggage up to this point? My fiancé stayed out of the house for almost a week, and I did something foolish again. I accepted a date from one of the men I had been flirting with on Tinder. I was frustrated and angry, and I just wanted to feel good about myself. My fiancé wasn't doing that anymore. There was once upon a time when he would take me out on dates and we would go shopping, and he just showed me how much he cared for me in his own ways. I hadn't felt that in a while, so I went searching for it. What I didn't expect was for my Tinder date to be hot as fire. I had seen his pictures and thought they had been modified a little to look like a Greek god. I hadn't actually expected the man I would see on the date to look exactly like his pictures. He was hot and I was engaged, but he didn't know that. I enjoyed the date and he asked to see me again. I went on another date with him when I was meant to be planning my wedding. I knew what I was doing, of course, but I didn't know the repercussions. My fiancé was refusing to take care of me, so I wasn't going to give him the time of day either. This was what I thought in my head. After all, I was young and could pull any guy I liked. If he didn't want to come correct, then he was going to lose me. I didn't want that, though, but my ego was my mouthpiece and was speaking in place of logic in the matters of my heart. Obviously, my fiancé didn't know I was going on dates behind his back at first. He wasn't even supposed to know, and maybe I would have gotten away with it. I wouldn't have been embarrassed and would have been living my dream life being married to him. It didn't work out for me that way, though. Funny enough, I always thought things would always work out my way. That was the mentality I had had while growing up. Anything I wanted, I got. Things had always been smooth and easy for me. Men fell at my feet, people went out of their way for me and did things for me just because they wanted to be on my good side. So I went on the dates since my fiancé didn't want to be of good use to my life. Label me a gold digger, but most of you all do the same thing. My fiancé moved back in after a week and apologized as he should. He told me he was sorry for making me feel like I had to provide for the wedding, and I forgave him, of course. I even stopped going on the dates for a little while as a show of good faith, and our wedding planning resumed again. But the money and the providing issue was still a big problem. Then my cousin had to come into the mix. Miss Goody Two-Shoes pretended to want to be of help to me, but she was a snake, and an even worse gold digger than I was. It was like she was sent from the deepest parts of hell to ruin my life, and that was what she did. My cousin asked if she could move in with me. In fact, she didn't even ask. She simply appeared at my doorstep one day and said she was here to help me plan for the wedding. She said she wanted to help me because she knew I didn't have any siblings or sisters in my corner, so she decided to help out. Lowell, as if I begged her to come to my aid. I couldn't turn her back because she was literally on my doorstep. Let her come and witness how I have been suffering to get money from my fiancé to give me my dream wedding. I didn't have any qualms with her seeing me at my lowest because it wasn't me she was seeing, it was my fiancé. My pride was still intact. I wasn't the one with no money because even though my fiancé had decided to stop providing for my maintenance and upkeep, I still had my ways. My fiancé was finding it difficult to make ends meet, and it served him right for planning a wedding when he wasn't yet financially stable. I was even beginning to have second thoughts about it, and to make matters worse, my cousin had to be supportive. I recall one instance when we had been dining together and discussing the pressing things we needed to sort out concerning the wedding planning. I had told my fiancé that we needed to complete the money for the wedding venue, as the down payment wasn't going to hold the place anymore. And instead of my cousin to support me, she supported my fiancé and told me we should get a smaller venue. Could you believe that? She wanted to tell me what to do for my own wedding? I should have seen it earlier. I should have seen the way her eyes never left my fiancé and how she was always coddling him. I should have known she had her eyes and wanted to have her claws on my man. If I had acted on it, I wouldn't have lost my fiancé to her. Yes, I lost my fiancé to my stealing two-timing cousins. It was my fault, I agree, but he was mine. Wasn't she meant to steer away? No, she was coming for what was mine. I just chose to not believe that my fiancé could be snatched away from me. My cousin began supporting him in matters concerning my wedding, that I began questioning why I had let her into my home. It got to a point where I had to warn her to stop acting concerned about my wedding. It was my dream wedding, and anything I wanted I was going to get, and she shouldn't be talking about things like reducing the cost. If she wanted to say shit like that, she was free to go get married. What I had told her that day drove a barrier between us, and she stopped commenting when my fiancé and I had been making plans. She only helped me on errands and followed me for my dress fittings. I had thought I had run her off with my words, but she still stayed and wanted to help plan my wedding, not knowing she was trying to cover my fiancé behind my back. I learned that the hard way. If there was one thing I hadn't known, it was that my future husband had a strong ego of his own. And that led to our final battle that broke off our engagement, and my life changed for the worst. For a time, I stopped going on dates because I thought he was serious about me again. He gave me money to plan my wedding as I wanted and didn't complain about it. He would get me a little keepsake as he was coming back from work, and he would ask me if I needed something. I was content, but karma or something had to be cruel. Or maybe it was my various choices that brought about my downfall. I would never admit to that. But then all of a sudden, my fiancé grew distant. I suspect this was the time my cousin had started getting to him and being his emotional support while I was his headache. It really be your own people, LOL. My fiancé had grown distant and unattached, and I didn't take it as anything. I didn't even notice it until everything had gone to shit because while my fiancé was being told he deserved better than my two-timing cousin, I had resumed my own bad habit. I ran into the hot guy I had gone on a date once with at the mall. I had talked about him at the beginning, so I ran into him and I was suddenly reminded of how hot he was and what I was missing. He asked about me and told me he had missed seeing me and paid for my entire purchase on the spot. Could you guys believe that? I wasn't going to reject him, so I allowed him to take me to a restaurant and feed me. Then it began again. I know what I had done was bad, but I didn't belong to my fiancé officially. He had asked me to marry him, and I hadn't said yes in front of God and a high church official, so there wasn't supposed to be a problem. I went on dates with Mr. Hot Guy behind my fiancé's back and received gifts in return, and he didn't even push for sex. That was what was so surreal about it. He wasn't pushing me for sex and wanted me to have everything I could possibly think of to want. Of course, I wasn't going to let go of such a good thing. My fiancé be damned. Lowell, the consequences of that statement I had made to myself? It was vast. My fiancé didn't know I went out on dates, and to be frank, I hadn't cared if he knew. But he found out, and it was through my cousin that was a tattermouth. I had been on a shopping trip with my affair, and we ran into my cousin at a clothing store. There was no other way to explain the situation except that I was cheating because my affair had his hand by the side of my waist and was holding me to him. This was how I had run into my cousin. Luckily, she didn't say anything in front of the guy I was with. She just shook her head and left. Double luckily, if there's a thing like that. She also didn't tell my husband on the first day. I guess she wanted to confirm if it was true, and I didn't try to be shy and hide the fact that I was having something with another guy I wasn't engaged to. We ran into her again, and this time she told on me to my fiancé. This had coincided with the time my fiancé was holding an office party where workers could bring their significant others. My fiancé had told me about the party, and my affair had also told me that he had an event he wanted to take me to. I didn't know there was drama that was about to unfold, so my cousin reported me to my fiancé, and he was livid. He screamed at me that after everything he had done for me, I was prancing around like I didn't have a ring on my finger, or that I was dating someone already. I was freely flirting with men and accepting gifts from them when I was about to be married. Apparently, he had been seeing all the gifts I had been coming home with but had chosen to overlook because he thought it might have been from my dad. This was when I found out that my fiancé had an ego up his sleeve. He began listing all the things I had done and that he had chosen to overlook, but just because he loved me and thought we were meant to be so, he had overlooked a lot. That I was meant to apologize to him for taking him for granted, and one thing that I wasn't paying attention to because my own ego had sparked and reared its ugly head. I told him how he should consider himself lucky that he managed to put a ring on my finger when I was still obviously a catch. Apologize? Could you imagine that? I should have apologized to him for what? I wasn't the one that had forced him to go on his knees and ask me to be his wife. We exchanged more heated words that my cousin had to excuse herself from the ugliness of it all. Then I told my fiancé that I wasn't going to go to his workers' party with him, and that I had another date at the moment with someone who didn't play about me and found me worthy. That seemed to anger him more, and he gave me a warning that I shouldn't even think about it. My fiancé spelled out in clear terms that if I left on the date I was bragging about, it was over between us. How had I assumed that to be a joke when he had told me? I had thought that he was joking about his words and was only saying them in anger, and I left. I left on a date with Mr. Hot Guy, and you guys wouldn't believe the drama I had put myself into. The date Mr. Hot Guy had said he wanted me to escort him to turned out to be my fiancé's workers' party. The very same. Imagine my surprise when the car had parked in my fiancé's office building, and I had been escorted by Mr. Hot Guy into where my fiancé worked. The first person my eyes landed on was my fiancé, and I thanked my lucky stars that no one from his workplace knew me, and I prayed my fiancé wouldn't cause a scene. But dumb luck. He didn't cause a scene in front of everyone. He had just walked up to my date and had told him I was engaged to be married. My date dropped my hand immediately like I had caught a virus or something and went on to argue with my husband. I had moved close to hear what they were arguing about because in some sick, twisted way I had hoped they argued about me. I thought everything revolved around me. They hadn't been arguing about me, though. Apparently, Mr. Hot Guy was the one that had framed my fiancé for siphoning funds. He was the one that had made my fiancé lose his job the first time. How funny was fate? It was really funny, all right. Anyway, I ran home that night before the party ended and waited for my future husband to get home so I could beg for forgiveness. He got home by the time I was already sleeping, so I had to see him the next morning. My cousin had already left the house. At least she had the sense and decency to do that. So the next morning I went on my knees and begged my fiancé for forgiveness that I hadn't known what had come over me, and I would be the perfect wife and wouldn't go out on dates anymore. My fiancé didn't say anything and didn't throw me out of the house either. I had thought fate was funny. My fiancé had a sense of humor that would have you laughing through the roof. He ruined me in front of all my friends. I had stupidly gone on with the wedding plans because I had thought that the wedding was back on track since he hadn't pursued me out of the house or anything. I didn't know I was a big joke. 2 months went by and the day of our wedding came. I'd even used my money from my dad to plan the entire thing. And my husband had sat back for 2 months waiting to carry out his revenge. I had done my makeup and hair and had put on my dress and was waiting for the planner to call me that the wedding ceremony had begun so I could march in with my dad. I waited and waited and waited, LOL. And when it seemed like no one was coming to call me out, I had seen myself to the church and you guys wouldn't believe what I saw. My fiancé was kissing my cousin at the altar at my dream wedding that I had sponsored with my money. He had married my cousin and jilted me at the altar as revenge for ignoring his warning and going on a date with his rival at work, which I hadn't known was his rival. All of my friends started looking at me and laughing at my embarrassment. I was standing there in a wedding gown while my fiancé was getting married to another woman in front of my eyes. What else could possibly be worse than that? The following weeks after the wedding went by in a blur. I'd gone to my fiancé's house to demand an explanation and had seen my clothes and bags outside with a note that said to move the things or risk losing them. I had to move my things back to my dad's house. But then a month later, my dad was arrested because he owed a huge loan from a bank, and all his property was seized, including our house. They were looking to charge him to court, and I didn't know what to do, so I had to go and beg whoever had offered him the loan to give us a little time to pay back the loan. My ex-fiancé turned out to be the person behind the loan issue. Apparently, my ex-fiancé was the son of one of the board directors of the bank. He was the son of the main person that made the decisions of the bank, and now he had taken over. My fiancé didn't spare me any mercy with the loan, so I had to use my personal money to bail out my father and pay half the loan. This was how my life had ended up. Paying off my father's debt because my ego was too big, and I had pushed away something that was meant to turn out good in my life. I was supposed to be enjoying the luxuries of my ex-fiancé's riches, but instead it was my cousin that had now taken my place, all because of my ego and foolish decision. I hope you guys that are proud like me would learn from my lesson and not tour the part I followed in my life. I'm still paying off the loan, and my ex-fiancé wasn't even pretending that we had a relationship in the past. I had tried begging my cousin to plead on my behalf, but she didn't help me. She probably thought I deserved it, which I did. Hi guys, can you believe that my fiancé left me and decided to run away with a football player? Yes, I got dumped by my own fiancé. I used to love football very much, but now I guess that I'm no longer a fan of that sport. I can't believe that our engagement meant nothing to her the moment she saw a good-looking football player who made her fake promises. Does she really think he'll end up getting married to her? I was her safe zone, and I even started making plans to prepare for our wedding just for her to get up one day and leave me. This football player is quite famous and well-known in the town I live in. He's not world famous or an A-list celebrity, so please take note. It's taking all my self-control and fear of getting sued to keep quiet and not calm him out. He's a coward, and she's a fool. Disgusting traitors. How could he steal someone else's fiancé? What an evil world we live in. Money, fame, and power seem to be the only relationship qualities some women are looking for. It makes no sense that an engaged woman would leave her fiancé just because she went in search of greener pastures. I plan on ruining their lives in such a way that they'll never forget my name. I plan on being their nightmares for the rest of their lives. I'm not going to let this go at all. I'm going to get the revenge I truly deserve, even if that means I might go down with them. My name is Maxwell, and I am a 27-years-old business administrator. The name of my fiancée is Stacy, and she's a 27-year-old hairdresser. I'll be referring to the footballer she dumped me for as the footballer, so please take note. In 2022, I took my fiancée out to go watch your football game. I still remember that particular date, but I don't want to disclose the date for personal reasons. I'm trying my best to make sure that the identity of the football player remains secret, because people from my town might recognize him. If it was left to me, I would have revealed his identity. But I don't want to end up with a legal problem. I don't want to get sued for a woman that left me without a second thought. I took her to that football game with the intention of spending more time with her. Never would I have imagined that that was the beginning of the end of our engagement. I'm so furious right now as I write this because it's bringing back all the triggering memories. I cannot believe that a football game I paid for, including the tickets, is now what led to the end of my engagement. Stacy and I went to that stadium, and we were seated in the front room. There's this particular football player that she kept swooning over. I'm sure that I'm not the only one who finds it normal for women to crush over celebrities. I did not want to come off as insecure, so I left her to do our thing. This football player kept stealing glances at her during every halftime. I noticed it, and I definitely tried to bring Stacy's attention to it. I'm not the type of man that you can tell lies, and I would end up listening to it. Call me insecure, but immediately I noticed how he kept stealing glances at her. I made sure I told her not to look at him again. I am not insecure about saying that to her. That was just me demanding the respect I deserve. You can't come to a game with your fiancé and disrespect them right in front of a stranger. If the roles were reversed and I was in her position, I'm sure that I would be tagged the disrespectful guy who had no respect for his relationship. Despite my complaints and warnings, Stacy kept looking at him. They were even flirting with each other right before my eyes, and that was when I told Stacy to get up so we could leave the football game. Stacy refused to leave because the game was not yet over. I was very angry, and I told her that we would need to leave if she did not stop disrespecting me. The football player even had to be benched because of how unserious he was. That gave him an opportunity to have the time to steal more glasses at Stacy. I finally had it, and I was tired of watching them do that. I stood up and left my seat. I didn't even waste any time before going to my car. I was almost moving out of the stadium when Stacy ran towards me and got into the car with me. She told me she was sorry and that she was not going to do what she did again. I was not ready to listen to her, but she assured me that she was just having fun and being in the moment. I never thought that something was going on. After her apology, I forgot all about the encounter with the footballer. I didn't even think of him for once after that day because I thought that it was just a silly occurrence. I didn't know that this footballer was going to be the most important driving force in the end of my engagement. I really believe that Stacy deserves a standing ovation for how discreet and pretentious she was throughout her affair with the footballer. I didn't even know that they were talking to each other, talkless of having a full-blown affair behind my back. This life is really a place where we learn every day, and we find out that there is really more to people than meets the eye. Behind every mask a person wears is a disgusting personality and despicable character. I am not generalizing this. I am just saying that if everyone wore their minds and souls on their sleeves, there would be less beautiful people in the world. 2 weeks before Stacy ran off with her footballer lover, she became very agitated and annoying. I noticed that there was something wrong, and I immediately began to suspect she was having an affair. Even though I was suspicious of her activities and character, I didn't really believe that she would suddenly get up and run away. I mean, I did not see any passports, but I am not saying that she ran to another country. There were no signs that she was going to run away at all. I was literally giving an early Christmas gift because it had to be the shock of my life. When I noticed Stacy's suspicious movements, I decided to speak to her about it. "What is going on with you, and why are you suddenly acting this way?" I remember asking her. "You need to stop exaggerating and being paranoid. There is nothing going on, and I am just being myself." "Maybe you don't really know me," Stacy said to me. After hearing all this from her, I didn't just know she was cheating. I also knew that there was every possibility that the woman I was engaged to was someone I never imagined she was. I realized that she is a vicious woman with intentions that were never truly pure. Stacy started getting distant, and then I was very sure that she was cheating on me. I decided to start getting back all the money I spent on her before she suddenly decided to break up with me. Unfortunately for me, I was not fast enough because Stacy was literally a step ahead of me. She wasted no time before she got the perfect opportunity to run away with the footballer. Before Stacy ran away, she called me on a Friday morning and said she wanted us to have an important conversation. I thought she was going to talk about our damaged relationship, but I got the shock of my life. Stacy sat on the front porch with her legs crossed as she stared at nothing in particular. You guys want to believe how nervous I had been? I thought that there was something good that was going to happen. I didn't believe that she was actually planning to get back together with me. Even if she was planning to get back together with me, my plan was to fake accept it so that I could get back all the money I'd spent on her. Call me stingy, but no man wants to watch the woman he has sacrificed a lot for leave him just like that. I thought I was going to be 10 steps ahead of her, but Stacy ended up telling me that she wanted us to end our relationship. I don't think I want to stay engaged to you anymore. I think we have grown apart, and I want us to end this relationship. Those were the exact words Stacy said to me. I still remember those words because even as I write this, the phone I recorded the whole conversation in is right beside me. I am even playing it now so that I can get the correct account of what actually transpired. I had to record because I thought I would be the one that would be at the edge of the conversation. I clicked a record on my phone because I wanted to have evidence of how I was able to trick Stacy. But at the end of the day, I am the one who got tricked and dumped. What are you talking about? We have been engaged for 1 year and you know that we are waiting to get a house before you get married. Why do you suddenly want to end the engagement? I asked her because I was terrified. You guys needed to see how calm she was. I'm sure that she had rehearsed everything she wanted to say before she sat there like a boss in my own house and broke up an engagement that had been going on for over 1 year. Stacy did not care about all the things I had said to her. She stood up, looked me in the eye, and said it was over, and that she had no plans of getting back together with me. Even though the truth was right before my eyes, I was ready to give her the benefit of doubt. I told her that we should just go to sleep and talk in the morning. Stacy did not give a reply. She just stomped into the house and pretended not to hear me talk. I don't know why I didn't see that as a sign that something was going to happen. I guess I underestimated how vicious she could be. Or maybe I just have this thing where I only see the best in people and do not really expect them to be fraudsters, liars, deceivers, and despicable human beings. She ran away with the footballer without speaking to me or even telling me that she was going to move out of the house. I'm literally itching to call his name, but I will not do that. I woke up on a Saturday morning to an empty house. When I say an empty house, believe me that it was really empty. I searched all around for her, but she was nowhere to be found. At first, I thought that she had probably gone to get some things from the grocery store, but I realized that she left the house hours later. All her things were gone from the closet. I know she already broke up with me before she left, and indirectly, I don't really have anything to say to her because we are no longer together. But what truly made me angry is the fact that she left with the engagement ring. I mean, if she did not want the relationship, she could have just left without taking anything that belonged to me. That engagement ring belongs to my grandmother. It has literally been passed from all my sisters to me. It is meant to be worn only before the wedding, and I am supposed to return it immediately after the wedding. Apart from the fact that it is a family property, that ring is also quite pricey. My grandfather spent a lot of money on it. Even though the ring might not be able to buy a mansion or house, it is still quite a lot of money. My sisters have also spent a couple hundreds of dollars remodeling it, so I am really upset that Stacy had the audacity to leave the house with the ring. She practically stole from me after breaking up with me. I know you are now wondering how and why I am so sure that Stacy cheated on me with the footballer. I decided to investigate everything that happened after Stacy left. I spoke to a friend of mine and he promised to keep an eye on Stacy. I got some pictures a week later and the pictures contained images of Stacy and the footballer. I can't even tell you how surprised I had been. I recognized the footballer from seeing the pictures. That was what made me understand that Stacy had been in contact with the footballer after we left the game that day. The betrayal hit harder than I expected it to hit, and I vouched and promised myself that I was going to get back at them in a more disgusting way. That stupid footballer with no form of conscience has to be the most disgusting person I have ever met. Stacy is no better than him, and is just as stupid and vicious as he is. I made a decision to start the revenge in a very slow process. I want to get the facts right and know what is really going on before I start making the first move. I'll be making an update to this post soon, and in the meantime, please share all your comments with me. Update. I don't know who said revenge is not the sweetest key, but I really do think that getting revenge on Stacy is going to be the sweetest experience of my life. Not just her, a stupid football lover is going to get a taste of his own medicine. I have come to realize that Stacy is just a gold digger who is looking for the fastest way to become rich. She tried it with me, but when she saw someone who earned faster than me, she decided to dump me. I am not just going to get my ring back. I am going to embarrass them in such a way that they will remember me for life. Thanks to my friend, I was able to find out that Stacy and the footballer are currently living together. They go on secret dates together, and she even attends his football games. Stacy works at a very strict company, and I will not call name of the company for security reasons. My first decision was to make sure she gets fired from the company. Her line of profession makes it very hard to get a job, especially when you were fired from your previous one. In order to get her fired, I decided to print out very demeaning things about her. But my friends talked to me and told me that that could be too extreme. We decided to use things that were more natural and could get her fired faster without leaving a trace. I still had some of Stacy's passwords, so I was able to log into her work group. I sent demeaning text messages which looked like Stacy was laying courses on her boss and accusing him of trying to sleep with her. It did not take more than 2 days before I got the news that Stacy had been fired from her job. I was so surprised and skeptical that I called my friend who worked at her company and asked if he was perfectly sure that she had been fired. My friend told me that the management of the company was so angry that they sent her a letter instead of firing her physically. I didn't feel any remorse. In fact, I felt very happy and elated to know that all my plans were finally coming together. That was just the first phase of my plan, and I knew I still had a lot of work to do. My plan was not just focus and Stacy. I also wanted to make sure that the footballer got what he deserved. Since Stacy was no longer working, she was indirectly a liability to him. My next decision was to get them ousted from the apartment they are currently living in. That part is really difficult because it is literally a residential area and the footballer is quite respected there. But I did not let that fact stop me from doing what I actually had in mind. I had made up my mind, and there was literally no stopping me. I had to speak to some of my friends so they could connect me with people who were experienced in doing that kind of thing. I was told that it was a very difficult task and that it would be quite hard to get them outside from that place. Apparently, the only way I could get them ousted from that place was when I was able to properly prove to the people living in that area that Stacy and the footballer posed a potential risk to them and were causing security problems. Of course, I didn't plan on doing any of that directly. It would be very hard to do that without letting them know of my plans. I had to spend days speaking to the people who were experienced in that line of work and asking them the best ways to make the people living in that area and the owners of the apartment believe that Stacy and the footballer posed security risks to them. It took time, but we were finally able to come up with something. I was told that I literally had to be patient because it was going to be hard to execute everything. So I had no choice than to carefully wait for everything to fall in place. I've been told that it might take up to 2 weeks to start making any progress, so I have to focus on other things for now. This is where today's update is going to end because I have a lot of work to do. I will keep you guys posted and updated and let you know how things go. Please don't forget to drop your comments because I'll be trying my best to reply to all the comments. See you all soon. Update 2. Whew. I'm honestly very exhausted right now because no one really told me that getting revenge was this hard. I mean, I thought it would be easy peasy and then I'll be done with this chapter of my life, but damn. I'm having more problems with actually executing it than thinking about it. When I was thinking about it, everything seemed like cake. It's funny how much our imagination really deceives us and makes us believe that everything is easy. Before I forget, I'm really grateful to all your comments and it's really been helpful. I've seen that some of you are really against my decision to get revenge. While I don't really agree with you guys, I'm grateful for your opinions and I appreciate every single comment I've gotten. I'm aware that putting my story up on this platform will obviously expose me to a lot of judgment. So, I don't take offense to any of the comments I've gotten so far. I believe that different people react to different situations in their own little way, and we all cannot have the same conflict resolution skills. My conflict resolution skills are more complicated and intentional, and I know that this cannot be the same with everyone else. Maybe when your fiancé cheats on you with a footballer and runs away with your engagement ring after dumping you, you can practice your own peaceful conflict resolution skills that are more human. Since I am the one currently in this situation, please bear with me and be kind with me as I go through this phase of my life. I promise that I am not planning anything too extreme. I do not plan on hurting anybody physically. I just really need to do this for me to be able to move on. This is my own version of closure. With all that being said and done, let me get you guys updated on what has been going on for the past few weeks. I know I promised an earlier update, but I was not able to keep that promise because a lot of things came up along the way. I think it's safe to say that I encountered a lot of difficulties in this journey to seek revenge. To be honest, there were times when I almost gave up. Emphasis on almost, because I never really gave up. So my friends and I were able to come to a particular resolution with the people we hired to get Stacy and the footballer ousted from their apartment. I don't really want to say how they planned to do it because I didn't even understand the things they said. But they assured me that they were going to do it in the legal way, and they assured me that there were not going to be any physical casualties. Well, they did keep their promises, and they didn't do anything too extreme. After 2 weeks of them making sure there was commotion in the apartment, I heard that the neighbors sent complaints to the caretakers of the estate. Apparently, the people I hired were able to make Stacy and the footballer do things that they would not usually do. I don't know if they list their drinks at a club. To be honest, I was not given the full information. One thing I do know is that whatever they did made Stacy and the footballer misbehave to a very extreme extent. It went on for weeks, and finally, they were told to go find another apartment because they were posing a security risk to their neighbors. To be honest, I made sure I had a good glass of whiskey the day I found out that all the efforts were not in vain. Of course, they were not particularly homeless. The footballer is rich and he has people that can help him. They rented a hotel immediately and they are currently staying there. My aim of getting them out of their apartment was not particularly just so they could not find a place to go. I am not stupid enough to think that the footballer did not have more than enough money to spend weeks in a luxurious hotel. I just wanted them to be shaken a little bit and start questioning if their relationship was a good idea. I also wanted to put a stain on the footballer's name because I knew that the neighbors would start talking and it would reach a lot of people. My calculations were not wrong because people started talking and the footballer even had to miss one of his games. I knew that the fact that he missed a game would make Stacy really angry. I also knew that teammates of the footballer would start asking questions. Even though I knew there was every possibility that everything I planned out was going to fall into place, I was not ready to bet something as serious as that on people's behavior. I did not want any casualties or sudden change of plans. So I decided to start the rumors myself. When I say the footballer is pretty well known, I'm not trying to say he's well known all around the world or globally. He's not a famous football or A-list celebrity. He's just quite known in town and is quite popular in our town. So please don't mistake him to be a world-famous footballer. I just don't want to mention his name because people from our town could recognize him. So I was able to start some rumors among his teammates, the crowd, and even among the coaches. I don't want to go to the extreme by revealing what the rumors are about. But I'll surely tell you that the rumors were enough to have his coach call him to order and ask him if the girl was a bad influence on me. The girl I'm referring to and the girl the coach was referring to is no other girl than Stacy. Before any of you come into the comments and accuse me of being too cruel, let me let you know how much of my life I have invested in Stacy. Even before we got engaged, I practically took care of her and her family. Do you think I just woke up one day and was pained by the end of the engagement? The reason I am so pained is because I know just how much I have gone through. Stacy and I have known each other for almost 10 years now, and I know just how many times she has come to me for help, and I helped her. We practically planned our lives together, and I even went as far as footing all the bills for her sister's declining health back then. I did not want to mention all these things at first because I am not really the type of person to brag about what I have done for someone. But as a result of the comments I had in which people judged me a lot, I had to stop this low and say just how much sacrifice I made for Stacy. Stacy even moved into my house and stopped paying rent at her apartment. She moved in with me long before we even got engaged. So now that I am trying to get revenge, just know it is because I know I deserve more than what and how she's treated me. I am sorry for deviating. It's time to get back to the main issue at hand. I heard from some of the people that were quite close to the footballer that he was having some issues in his team because of his association with Stacy. One thing you need to know about most upcoming footballers and football teams is that they rely deeply on their female fans and what people think about them. It is important to keep a good reputation and make sure that you do not do anything that will make the public cancel you, because it can have an effect on ticket sales and your popularity. It can also have an effect on the fans' desire to see you. This was the same case with the footballer because people had started talking as a result of the rumors that he was sent packing out of his previous apartment because of his behavior and how he posed a security risk. All these really made me happy because I also got to know that this development was causing quite some drama in the relationship between Stacy and the footballer. People were definitely talking and they were not happy with the way things were going. I also like the fact that Stacy's relationship with the footballer became public and she is known as his girlfriend. This is also part of my plan because the next phase of my plan involves shaming Stacy publicly and indirectly shaming the footballer too. I want to teach them such a lesson that will hurt them a lot. That footballer obviously saw me with Stacy and he knew that she was with me because when we were at the stadium that day, I made sure I kissed Stacy publicly because I thought that would be enough to make the footballer look away. The fool didn't even budge. He watched everything that was unfolding in front of him, yet he chose to do what I did. I'm also trying to teach Stacy that you cannot just wake up one day and throw away everything someone else has worked very hard for. If I was the one that decided to break up with Stacy after cheating on her with a complete stranger, even after all the money she had spent on me, I would be judged. It also makes no sense that Stacy would take the ring that means a lot to me with her. She just broke up with me without any explanation or reason, even after cheating on me. I'm getting my revenge legally and I'm really enjoying doing it. The next phase of my revenge plan will be the final one, and I really can't wait for all these to be over. Even though I've been enjoying this a lot, I can't deny the fact that getting revenge on another person makes you lose yourself a little bit too. Not that I am complaining, because as far as I can make sure that Stacy and her footballer lover have the worst lives possible, I'm ready. I just want this phase to be over so I can properly move on. I'm tired of constantly talking about Stacy and planning what the next move will be. All I really want to do is make this process faster and speed it up as fast as I can. I already tried my best to reply to the previous comments. If I haven't replied to yours, please feel free to type again. It's not easy getting revenge, LOL, so please bear with me. Thank you all, and I'm truly grateful for your time. Update 3. Oh my goodness, what a crazy ride it has been. I am super happy that I was able to make some really crazy people doing this experience, LOL. You all have the funniest sense of humor, and I'm literally here for it. If I was not the one who was cheated on and I stumbled upon this story, I'm sure I would have a good laugh too. But since I'm the one experiencing this crazy thing, I can assure you that it's not as funny as it sounds. I'm just trying my best to use humor to mask the level of anger and pain I feel. This is the 3rd update, and I am literally super happy that you all stood by me throughout all 3 updates. I can't believe it's been 3 updates full of revenge schemes and stories. I started writing this with a very heavy heart because the wound was still fresh back then. But now, I'm happy that all the plans, effort, and time I put into this was not in vain. I have gotten the results I wanted. It might not be as perfect as I planned it in my head, and I am honestly glad that it was not like that, because the plan I had in my head was brutal, lol. But it is definitely better than it could have been if things went south. This is the last update, and I feel like popping champagne to celebrate it. Let me get straight into the story and tell you all how our final phase of revenge went. So, I was able to get out a story that obviously aimed at making Stacy's reputation go sour. The first trial went bad because we almost got caught. Our first trial was mainly aimed at publishing edited pictures of Stacy with the footballer's teammate, which suggested that Stacy was cheating on the footballer. We almost got caught while in the process of trying to put the pictures together and paste them in the team's locker room. That was a huge setback for us, as we had to restructure after that. I am using plural because a lot of my friends helped me. They knew just how much time and energy and money I spent on Stacy, and they felt really bad for me. They were mostly the reason why I was able to get a lot of help. During the time when we decided to lay low, I heard that Stacy and the footballer were having issues, but I didn't really ask what was really going on. The reason I refused to ask or act like I was interested in their relationship is because I didn't want to raise any suspicions. I was fine with the little information I was able to get from the sources that were a little bit close to them. My aim was to get revenge, and everything had been working in my favor. Even if I had stopped, I wouldn't have a need to worry. After many days and weeks of strategizing, you were able to get pictures again and paste them in their local room. I got to know from a source who was at the stadium that day, but the pictures really caused a lot of commotion. The footballer and his teammate, who was in the picture with Stacy, got into a fight. The footballer really believed the pictures and thought that his teammate had betrayed him. I heard that it was a really bad fight and that it even attracted the coaches. After a lot of investigation, the teammate was finally able to prove his innocence. The footballer apologized to his teammate. Even though the case was cleared and everything was back to normal, the coach was not ready to forgive the footballer easily because he believed that he was slowing the team down with his negative energy. He was banned from playing in the next 5 games and was instructed not to come to practice. I heard that the coach intentionally did that so that the footballer will get serious again. Well, everything ended up working in my favor because the footballer got back to his hotel room and started a fight with Stacy. I know this because I booked a room at the hotel that same day because I knew that the footballer was going to come back from the stadium very angry. I didn't want to have any secondhand gists, and I wanted to hear everything with my own ears. That's the reason why I decided to be present when everything happened. I wasn't able to get really close since it's a hotel with a lot of security. I didn't want to leave her around and raise any suspicions. So I decided to lay low and wait outside in the lobby. The proof that the footballer went off on Stacy came barely 30 minutes after I waited in the lobby. Stacy was crying when she ran to the lobby with a duffel bag in hand. I assumed that the duffel bag was all that she was able to pack during the argument. I could tell that they had broken up because she was obviously leaving the hotel. I wasted no time before showing myself to Stacy. She was very shocked to see me, and I could tell that she started piecing the puzzle together. I didn't wait for her to stop ranting before I grabbed her hand and snatched the engagement ring from her fingers. It was still intact and she had not tampered with it. She was lucky that nothing happened to that ring because I was ready to sue her even if she just altered it. Stacy pointed an accusing finger at me and said, "So you are the one that did all these and made our life miserable? Just because I cheated on you? You guys don't know how happy I was to hear her finally accept that she cheated." I just smiled happily before telling her in my exact words, "You deserve it all." So guys, I left the hotel immediately because I no longer had any business with Stacy or the footballer. I'd exacted my revenge, and I made their lives a living hell. I'm sure that neither Stacy nor the footballer will ever forget me. I made Stacy lose her job and break up with the footballer she dumped me for. I also made the footballer lose the eligibility to play in 5 of his games, and I was able to ruin his reputation in our town. If you ask me, I think I did a pretty good job. That is all, guys. Thank you for all your comments and support. Finally, this chapter of my life is over. Bye, guys.